Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And a welcome to you on this sunny Monday. It is November 6th. Okay, I've said, I've grunted, have I done a real, that the grunt was more of a sigh. Okay. So let's see. Trump is gonna be under oath. What a joke. And on the stand today. I don't suppose anything could go wrong with that scenario, do you? Oh, jeez. God. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine. First of all, he's incapable of telling the truth, so we know he will perjure himself. Whether or not that amounts to anything, I don't know. Also, they'll be talking about essentially his money, because that's what this trial is about. And when it comes to his money, he's, first of all, incapable of telling the truth, and he is also sort of crazed, irrational, because it's how he defines himself. And there is no way, zero way, that this guy with next to no ability to edit himself, control himself, will all of a sudden, voila, be able to do so today. So I cannot begin to imagine, and I just want to say, good God, I hope the judge took a prophylactic Advil or two. Oh my God. So that'll be quite the show. Now, these polls that came out this weekend, the New York Times Siena polls, which showed Trump essentially winning. If the election were held today, Donald Trump would win re-election to the White House. Now, thank God the election is not today. But it tells us that, why am I laughing? That the threat of him winning again is real. That we live in a country where a frightening number of our fellow citizens are willing, knowing him as president, would vote for him again. I've said this before. Much more terrifying than him himself is that. And there was a quote from some schmo in Bloomsburg, PA. You know how when they're doing these stories, like the polls, the reporter always has to find a schmo to, give sort of a personal feel to whatever the poll is showing. So, this is where diners are great places for finding these folks, I guess. And the guy who got quoted in the New York Times article about their terrifying poll made it onto the front page. I mean, that's big. And let me find his exact quote, because here it is. His name is, and I'm sorry, Spencer. His name is Spencer Weiss. Says here he is a 53-year-old electrical substation specialist. I'm not quite, well, so something with electricity and substations, and he's specialist. 53 years old, Spencer Weiss says. By the way, he voted for Biden in 2020. He'll be voting for Trump, he says, in 24. And he said this: the world is falling apart under Biden. I would much rather see somebody that I feel could be a positive role model for the country, but at least I think Trump has his wits about him. Well, I wish I could say the same about you, Mr. Weiss, 53-year-old electrical substation specialist in Bloomsburg. But clearly, you don't. So the world is falling apart, you say. I share your pessimism as I look around. But the world is not under Biden. The world is falling apart under Biden. Yeah. This is how people vote. This is oh God. I really think that this experiment, this American experiment in democracy, maybe, it's going to be short-lived, and it's going to prove at some point that you cannot allow the people to decide if the people are incapable of paying attention, being serious, bother to be knowledgeable. He thinks Donald Trump, what did he say? I mean, you can't even, but so this is a poor guy who, I guess, sums up the finding of that poll, that things aren't going well in the world, and that must be Joe Biden's fault. And it shows here that he'd lose Pennsylvania, he'd lose Michigan, he'd lose Arizona, he'd lose Georgia, he'd lose Nevada. He's losing Hispanics. He's losing black people. He's losing Muslims. He's losing Arabs. He's losing everybody. We're fucked. But yeah, given a choice, I mean, come on. Given a choice. I don't know. I don't even think, obviously anything that Biden has done, and he's done a lot of things well since he's been president, none of that is getting through to the voters. But that's because our news operations are broken. And because of technology and social media and, silos and all that kind of stuff. I just don't know that democracy can function in this insanity, because I agree with Mr. Spencer Weiss that the world is falling apart. It sure does seem to be. He blames Joe Biden, fine. But he's got to have somebody to blame. Russ writes, a little more than a year away from the 24 election. It is. It's like a year away tomorrow. Right. And CNN and MSNBC are already beginning the Biden takedown by keying on the poll results. Well, it was a big news over the weekend. Of course, that's where they're going. That promote Trump as the front runner in states Biden won last time. Maybe it's just me. Have a great day. Okay, let's, before my caller calls in who says the polls are stupid, don't pay any attention to them, I'll say it for you. This poll at this time does not in any way tell us what the result will be. We don't know what the result will be, but what this does tell us is this is not a slam dunk election for Democrats, despite the fact that Donald effing Trump is who the Republicans, the neo-fascist Christian nationalist party, is putting up. And this poll says more Americans say yee-haw to that than to Joe Biden. Unbelievable. Got a caller? Is it my caller who's going to tell me polls don't matter? Hello?
That's me. Yeah, I'm saying, I'll tell you what, I'm saying landslide Biden. That's what I'm saying. I am saying it, you watch it. You'll see it.
Okay, you have said it.
The last time was good. Wait till this time. Wait till this time. It's going to be a landslide. We're going to capture the House back, too. We're going to have full control, but after that, we'll probably fuck it up. So it doesn't matter. That's what we do. We'll get the whole thing again, and we'll blow it. I don't know. We'll lose.
I think we might take the House. I do think we might take the House.
They didn't consider the margin of error in there. I was reading some of the stuff, and then they were over saying the blacks are going to vote for Trump overly. I mean, no, they got it wrong.
I don't think so either. But they might not vote. The thing is, people might just sort of be, like, screw it. I don't want either of these guys. I'm not voting. That's what Democrats have to worry about.
But there's too many issues. It's not like a year where there's...
Yeah. Well,
there's too many issues. If you don't vote, it doesn't make sense. It's not like it's a normal time.
Yeah. No, but that's Biden. But see, people who don't bother thinking would say, no, it's not. It's a horrible time. And who's president? Joe Biden. So it's his fault.
I didn't blame a lot of stuff on, even when Republicans are on the president, because I don't think the president controls the reins as much.
Well, he doesn't. He doesn't control
it's the rich control the country. They can make or break the country anytime they want to. They want to lay off, they'll lay off. They want to hire, they'll hire. They don't care. If you raise their taxes, they're going to lay people off. That's just how they are. They don't care about people, working people, never did, never will. You go back in history, history shows you how terrible we were, how terrible those plantation owners were, and all those people that run the country and stuff. So how can you expect any more from those people? Anybody who loves rich people, they're full of shit. I just don't like them. I mean, there are some decent. Honest to God, I don't. I just think how they got their money is by somebody's sweat off somebody else's back. I mean, it just they beat the people down. That's what they do. Just like this guy that's in there for the House, he wants to cut Social Security. Fuck him. He can go. He can go eat shit and die.
I hear you.
I can't stand that son of a bitch. I cannot stand that guy. I don't know where they got that rotten bastard, but why didn't the Democrats leave dipshit in? What the hell was it?
Well, they wanted, you can't remember. Dipshit. Dipshit turned McCarthy, you're thinking. But, no, it doesn't. Look, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're in chaos. Yeah, we're in chaos. The Democrats, I don't mind.
They make a lot of blunders. As I said, they'll get everything their way, and then they shoot themselves in the foot, and they shoot themselves in the arm. And I mean, it drives you nuts. Then you get this one coming out. That one, I think I'm not sure which. She's a Democrat. She's telling Biden that they're going to remember him at the polls.
To leave.
that doesn't
Tlaib
help.
from Michigan. No,
Yeah.
she's gone off the deep end. She says that Biden is essentially now in support of genocide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
well,
he
fine.
that.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not even that. As if there's a genocide going on. There is not a genocide going on. It's called a war. Okay.
Yeah, that's the way
Thank
it is
you.
to me.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. Bye. Okay, so before we get all exercised, I want to read this wonderful rant that I came upon. And I won't do it all because it was such a, if a rant is really good, you can tell the person has almost, there's smoke coming out of their ears. They sort of lose their mind while they're doing it. And this is a guy named Shalom Auslander. And he writes this. I could have written it, but he wrote it. All right, you ready? As the world continues to spiral madly out of control and our dying sun sets for the last upon the bloody, broken-winged bird called hope, I demand that you, this is something he's writing to all the people who text him and forward things to him. I am demanding that you immediately and without delay fuck off with all this news shit. It's not that I don't appreciate the tsunami of doom-filled news you send me, or the ghastly videos, or the maniacal meta pages, or the hateful tweets. It's not that I don't value the links I never asked for to lunatic podcasts that you agree with, or the links I never asked for to lunatic podcasts that you disagree with. It's not that I don't treasure the excerpts you send me from the op-eds you approve of, or the excerpts from the op-eds that you send me in a furious froth. I'm touched that as you subject yourself to the emotional wedgie of modern day over-information, you generously think of sharing it with me. But the onslaught, I've lost it, I lost my page. But the onslaught of misery you have been subjecting me to is taking its toll, including, but not limited to, the following. These are the miseries he is telling his correspondents that he is suffering. Depression, misanthropy, suicidal ideation, resignation, nagging suspicions that my medication is underdosed, angrily muttering to myself on street corners, sitting on the edge of my bed and staring into the distance, rudeness to innocent baristas, xenophobia. Guy's really struggling here. And I'm begging you, I'm requesting that immediately and without delay, you cease and desist from sending me any and all materials, links, or media of any kind which in any way pertain to, reference, or mention the subjects indicated below. The war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, the war in Syria, the war in Ethiopia, the war in Afghanistan, the war in fill in the blank, armed conflicts, Republicans, Democrats, Trump's latest outrage, red states, blue states, swing states, Texas, Florida, bombings, stabbings, beatings, rapes, extremists, the economy, the market, Wall Street, NASDAQ, GDP, GNP, crime rates, poverty rates, mortgage rates, millionaires, billionaires, CEOs and bankers, climate change, earthquakes, hurricanes, sea levels, ice caps, fucked polar bears, fucked owls, fucked bees, fucked birds, fucked oceans, pandemics, viruses, antibiotic resistant strains. Woke, pro or con? Cancellations, pro or con? School shootings, workplace shootings, mass shootings, something stupid a celebrity said, something stupid a professional athlete said, something stupid a professor said, something stupid an Ivy League student said. Terrorism, racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, colonialism, misogyny, homophobia, hate groups, the ADL, the Southern Poverty Law Center, Hollywood award shows, Marvel movies. Must-sees, must-buy, must-reads. And it goes on, but I'll spare you. Please be advised, before you begin a self-righteous tirade about living with my head in the sand, it's not that I don't care about these issues. I care in some cases quite deeply. I simply don't possess your ability to wallow in the cesspool of relentless media which our daily lives have become. Living under siege like this isn't normal, and it isn't noble. I don't care what the people profiting off it claim. Being aware of every asshole on the planet makes it seem like there are only assholes on the planet, and I don't see how thinking that helps. Pretty good, huh? That wasn't even half of it. Shalom Auslander. Oh my God. So yeah, according to the guy, the specialist substation electrical in Bloom, whatever that was in Pennsylvania, that made it into the New York Times with his stupidity. The world is, coming apart. And I think he's right about that. And I found a few, for instances, actually. Here's one. These are just little things that in wallowing in the cesspool of media that I have come across in the weekend. Guess what happened on Friday in New York City? Well, it's because the United Nations is there. Iran became the chair of the United Nations Human Rights Forum. Excuse me. Yeah, okay. Well, that's all you need to know about the United Nations. Heading our Human Rights Forum will be the extraordinarily repressive, murderous, bigoted regime in Iran. Yeah, so that was one thing that made me, well, you know, you can either chuckle or sit on the edge of your bed staring into the distance. Here's another one. Can't make this stuff up. U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville was awarded the Alabama Policy Institute's Warrior Award at its annual dinner on Thursday night. Senator Tuberville got the Warrior Award, a guy who, never a warrior, he was never in the armed forces, but who was single-handedly handicapping our armed forces by, of course, refusing to allow hundreds of people to be promoted or reassigned to extremely important positions. You got to wonder, well, you don't have to wonder who the fine people making up the Alabama Policy Institute might be, but oh, God in heaven. So, Guys, I don't know. So tomorrow's the election. I already voted. I'll not say what I think's going to happen, but I do have some. Do some homework and don't, all those, judges, there'll be a lot of, do you retain this judge or that judge? And there's no R's or D's after their names. You don't have a clue if they've been good or bad, if they've been ridiculously incompetent. And so it would be wise to, try to find out those facts. Otherwise, if you vote for anyone with an R, you're out of your cotton picking mind. That's all I am saying. There's always such a thing as abstention and or write-in. Okay. Oh, okay. Hey, I always say that I think I have a certain level of face blindness. I'm not sure what the actual term is. So I also have an inability to remember names, which so it's a double whammy. So it happens to me with such regularity that I'm, in a situation where somebody says hello to me and I don't have a clue. I mean, there have been so many embarrassing things where at a party, someone will say, as in a group, and have you met Lynn? They'll say to this person. And have you guys met each other, I guess is how it would work. Because as the other person says yes, I say no. And in one such instance, the guy, after I said no, actually said, Lynn, you've been to my house for dinner. Well, that's one of those situations where if the floor could just open up and disappear me, that would be good. So I think I've decided that a lot of it is my generalized social anxiety, so that when I'm such a sort of, I know it doesn't seem like it, but trust me, the roiling underneath part, that when I'm introduced to somebody, I'm so sort of like that I'm not hearing the name, I'm not seeing the face, I am just trying to, I don't know. And I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but whatever it is, I have to meet somebody at least 5-6 times before it sticks. But that's why I'm so blown away that I recognized somebody in the newspaper and I'd seen him before. And I thought, I think that's, and then I saw that he was actually identified. And I thought, but I think that's, and I Googled him and indeed I got it right. I was blown away, but here's who it is. This is a almost half-page colored ad, which would be pricey as hell, in the New York Times. And I think it was in Sunday's Times, which would be pricey as hell. And it is not the first time I've seen it. So, it's getting a lot of play. And it's a picture of two guys, both of whom I recognize, as it turns out, striding in some warehouse, engaged in conversation. And under it, it says in big letters, green jobs. The people in the picture, the one you would recognize, is our governor, Governor Shapiro. And the guy I recognized because he's so hot. I think because do you remember when I talked about the 60 Minutes Australia piece? This Australian billionaire who had sidled up to Donald Trump, given Trump over $1 million, joined Mar-a-Lago and then some, paid even more than the usual price. And all of this to gain favor and, get inside. And boy, did he get inside, because he's the one that later said that Trump literally showed him top secret classified stuff about our nuclear submarines and other stuff. That's who's in this picture with Shapiro. What? And it just says green jobs. Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro tours Pratt, that's the guy, Pratt Industries recycled box factory with Chairman Anthony Pratt, who's pledged to double his investment in Pennsylvania to $1 billion. The guy's got money upon money upon money. He likes throwing it around. He likes currying the favor of people he thinks are powerful and or will be. Did the same with Prince Charles before he became King Charles. Anthony Pratt. I wonder, I guess Shapiro would have had to sign off on being in this ad, right? He might regret being in this ad. I don't know. This guy is a bit of a, who mentioned earlier that rich people sort of control things. Well, this is one of those rich people who uses his money to gain access and entree, and who happily did share his what Trump said to him. But it was classified top secret about our nuclear submarines and then some. Dear God in heaven. Just saying, it's odd. Milton says that face blindness is called prosopagnosia. Prosopagnosia. Or facial agnosia. Face blindness. It's a neurological disorder characterized by the inability to recognize faces. Well, the other reason I think I have it is when I go to movies, I have a lot of trouble separating some characters. Like all the blonde women just look the same. I can't. It's hard for me. I mean, if I have it, it's not a huge case of it. But there it is. I got here for you. God almighty, what a world. What a world, I'm telling you. So, a lot of, we'll see with the elections tomorrow, if anything, goes one way or the other in terms of, being able to read the chicken entrails about where the country is in terms of its voting predilections. I don't know. I'm sorry, I keep saying, don't I? I'm sort of avoiding, Israel again. Wow. I happened to talk yesterday with a woman who I know very well, but I did not know. She used to live in Israel, and she lived on one of the kibbutz that Hamas targeted that day, that horrible day. And she says, I lived there. My children were young there. They so loved it. Her kids, so this would have been 20, 25 years ago. But she knew families of some of the dead, the slaughtered, and she knows one of the old hostages taken. I came upon this and I thought it was really good about how, there are so many aggrieved people, understandably aggrieved people when it comes to this particular thing. And I learned the name of somebody who's like, he's the guy, the go-to guy on this issue. His name is Kenneth Stern. He is director of Bard College's Center for the Study of Hate. Boy, man, the study of hate. Can you imagine? Do they give, can you major in that? Yes, I have a PhD in hate. It certainly is something that is, is worthy of study. So this Kenneth Stern is the head of the Center for the Study of Hate. And he also is the author of a number of books, but one called The Conflict Over the Conflict, subtitled The Israel-Palestine Campus Debate. So he's very much, this is something that he studies. And I think it was in a column Michelle Goldberg wrote. She says that he occupies a unique position in this profoundly polarizing debate. He is a liberal. He is a Zionist. He is an expert on anti-Semitism. He is a committed civil libertarian. And he has been extremely critical of mainstream Jewish groups wielding institutional power to try to silence pro-Palestinian voices. This is why he's somebody, even though I said he's a Zionist, right? Why even a pro-Palestinian might be able to trust him on this. He resigned in 1982 from the left-wing National Lawyers Guild rather than face what felt like a purge for refusing to sign on to a strictly pro-Palestinian statement. So he's a guy, God bless him, here is a guy who refuses to reduce things to bumper stickers, refuses to simplify that which is incapable of simplification because it is extraordinarily, intricately complex and confounding. And so he said, I can't sign that. That's like boilerplate. It's disingenuous. It's not right. So he signed. He said goodbye. Then he becomes the in-house anti-Semitism expert at the American Jewish Committee and ends up leaving there. The same way he left the lawyers group on the pro-Palestinian thing, because he thought that the AJC, the American Jewish Committee, in its ardent defense of Israel, was forsaking a commitment to academic freedom. He also is somebody who helped draft the internationally adopted definition of anti-Semitism. And he has said this: the complexity of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict should make it an ideal subject to teach critical thinking and how to have difficult discussions. Yeah. It's made for that. Of course, there's a but. But instead, it is used as a toxin that threatens the entire academic enterprise. Those of us who see the complexity, who can hold two seemingly disparate thoughts in our heads at the same time, are suffering right now. Because we see how so many people are unwilling to do it. Sort of like the disinterested voter, the unserious voter who I made some fun of at the beginning. The world's going to hell and it's all Biden's fault. Palestine, Israel is so complex that it's mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And the cynical manipulation of so many nation states, intellectuals, folks with varying agendas using it is deeply distressing to people who truly are looking for some way forward. I was reading this thing about, I think it was a few years ago, so it isn't the current thing, but it's Israel-Palestine is always this flashpoint. And this guy was invited to a conference in Australia, an academic conference. And Palestinian authors were invited. He was invited. I guess he was an author. And somehow, I guess, when the Palestinians got invited, then certain people stood up and said, this is an outrage. They shouldn't be here. And then if an Israeli gets invited, there's others. This is an outrage. We're boycotting it. So that kind of thing happened. And he got in touch with the person who was the poor soul who was in charge of inviting people and putting this thing together. And he called her and he said, and he says this: she did her best to explain. She said that some people were hating the Palestinians for hating the Israelis, and that the people who hated the Palestinians for hating the Israelis now hated her for inviting them. Other people, she said, hated Israelis for hating Palestinians, and they hated the people who were hating her. Furthermore, one of the hated Palestinians seemed to support the Russians who hate Ukrainians. The Ukrainians who hate the Russians because the Russians hate the Ukrainians now hated that Palestinian too, And so the Ukrainians who hated Jews during World War II had now joined arms with the Jews who currently hate the Ukrainians because the Ukrainians hated Jews during World War II in hating the Palestinians. If you had some difficulty keeping up with that, I think that was the point. I don't know why I stifled that laugh. Another thing I saw that really blew me away, I think it was in the Washington Post, can't be sure. It was reporting about, good God, how would you like his Blinken? How would you like his frequent flyer miles? Woo! Blinken and nod. I wonder how he's sleeping these days. Jeez. So apparently he's been, where hasn't he been? He's been in every capital of the Middle East in the last few weeks. He's been on the West Bank. He's been with Abbas. He's been in Jordan. He's been in Israel. He's been in Egypt. He's been in Iraq. He's been in Saudi Arabia. He's been in Qatar. I mean, where hasn't the poor guy been? And this last time, as things become more sort of tethered, and he said that the Arab leaders he is speaking to, or at least this is the reporting, say they are increasingly concerned about the growing public outrage in their country, creating, obviously, instability in their country. It is, when there's lots of angry people crying for blood and war in the streets, leaders get nervous. And so Blinken is meeting with all of these nervous leaders. And it says here they told Mr. Blinken that they could no longer bear domestic pressure over the Palestinian death toll and needed the Americans to act. It's the next sentence that blew me away. It says that message from Arab leaders that they couldn't take it much longer and America had to act, that message stood in contrast to what some of them privately told Blinken earlier in the conflict, that they were open to an aggressive Israeli campaign against Hamas. That's part's never said out loud. So the other thing that I do feel like I do need to say is that I saw that somebody said, if Israel were not a Jewish state, if it were an Arab state, a Muslim state that somehow had been, created relatively, seemingly recently, although the people therein had, long historical ties to the land. If it weren't a Jewish state, if it were an Arab state or Muslim state, there would not be people in the streets all over the world. And why do we know that? We know that because just in the last, 10 years or so, in that part of the world, innocent Arabs and children have been slaughtered by state actors or their minions. By the tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands. Al-Assad in Syria. Huh? Whoa, with Russia's help. How many innocent Muslims have been killed? Civilians. How many refugee camps have been set up there? Huh? Think of all the people pouring into the streets in London to protest that savagery, that death of innocent Arabs. You can't, because it didn't happen. Yemen, there's been slaughter in Yemen in the last few years. The streets in London were empty. What did Pakistan just say the other day? They are giving almost 2 million Muslim refugees from Afghanistan like a few days to get the hell out of their country. They are throwing these poor people out. Where is the outrage in the streets of European capitals to this inhumanity and this targeting of innocent people, battered and buffered by war and cynical leaders? God, isn't it? It's only when Israel, Jews, sorry guys, this is it. It's how Jews see it, and Jews are right about this. It's only when Israel, Jews kill, that people speak of genocide. And all of these folks, these well-meaning social justice warriors, pour into the streets. Right. So the woman who said, and it was a woman who said, if Israel were an Arab or a Muslim state, there would be no issue here. Because Muslims killing Muslims, Arabs killing Arabs, Arabs sending other Arabs packing. Good God. The death toll in that in the last 10 years is in some ways much more certifiable than what's going on right now. And all I'm asking you is to ask yourself, why is it only when the death can be laid at the hands of Jews does the world go mad? Only. All these students, these students who care so much. Are they in the streets about the Uyghurs? Are they in the streets of? I mean, it's just so bizarre. I wish that they would be willing to question themselves about that strange silence in so many horrors that have befallen the innocent people of the Middle East at the hands of other people in the Middle East. So John Fetterman is, whoa. There was a New York Times piece about it. He's having fun now. He's got himself, he's just avowedly on Israel's side in this, which has made a lot of people on the left who voted for him go ape shit. But he says he doesn't care. He's been criticized, a lot. And he says, look, none of this phases me anymore. I've been called a vegetable and worse, which is true. He says it's that line from the original Batman with Jack Nicholson as the Joker, and he starts laughing, and he's like, I've already been dead once. He says, that's really what's happened to me. I was dead once. He's talking about the stroke. He's talking about his suicidal ideation. He's talking about his depression. And he's talking about now coming back. And people are noting it. I mean, they say he in no way is like he actually makes eye contact now. He laughs a lot. He mingles. But he is lonely because his wife and kids are here. It says, this is a Washington Post article. It says here, he says, sitting in your apartment, I can't really help my kids with their homework or that kind of thing. So, and then it says he trails off and fights back tears. Most nights, he generally ends up getting a salad or Ethiopian food to eat alone back at his apartment. It's lonely sometimes, he says. And he is, I don't know that he'll run again. I think it'll be interesting to see if he runs again. He is so, I mean, more than just the dress, his garb. He just is not comfortable in an institution with all of this hooey that goes on, the false respect, the honored gentleman from so-and-so. You know, when the person really wants to say, fuck you and the horse you rode in. You know, it's hard on him. So, but it was some people in the Senate don't like him. They don't like the fact that he's gathers so much attention and is shaking things up and looks the way he does. I understand that, but whatever. It was a whole. And in regard to Israel, he said he's had now protests outside his office featuring a giant puppet of Fetterman, confrontations when he goes out, enraged letters. Some former staffers published a letter saying that his stance was a gutting betrayal. It's interesting how the word betrayal is being used so often. I said betrayal in regard to Summer Lee and some others on the left. Hear people on the left saying they feel betrayal by Fetterman. And I'll just give you a few more of his words and then we're out of time. When things happen like this, you have to make a choice and stand for a side. And I'm always going to come down on the side of Israel, he says. And I absolutely grieve the lives of any innocent, whether Gaza or Israel or whatever. Only one group celebrates the death of civilians, and that is Hamas. Okay, that's it for me today. Enjoy the sun and the warmth, and Susan will join us tomorrow, and hope you will too. Thank you.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.